Griffin, I received your Paris card. I waited, but you did not return on the 23rd. I waited until the 31st, but you did not return. What happened? Where are you? Write to me, Griffin. Sabine.
King Knight's War to King Knight's War. King's Pawn to King's Fall. King Bishop Pawn to King Bishop's Fourth. Queen to King Rook's Fifth. Mate.
Sabine, I was sure I understood. Yet you were not here when I returned, and there was no sign that you'd ever been here. I asked the woman next door about you, and she looked at me as though I'd gone round the bend, saying she'd been in twice to check the house, and there was certainly no sign of anyone living in the place. I wandered around trying to figure things out. Then I found the old airmail label you sent on a postcard last winter, right after you first started staying here. It was still in the cupboard. Today comes your card saying you were in this house for 7 days after my return. I'm bewildered. I need you badly. Griffin.
Griffin, I've always known we were polarized, but I didn't expect this. We have a bigger problem than I thought. The gap is wide. I'm frustrated at not being able to hold you in my arms. I feel like I'm being teased by an unseen adversary. My consolation comes from being home, where I became myself again once I'd washed my face in the sea and dug my feet into catty sand. Do not worry. We will find an answer. Love, Sabine. How's Minalouche? He wanted to come back with me, but I told him he wouldn't get on with the Macaws.
Sabine, Minalouche hung around for a few days, acting as if he'd lost something. Now he's back to his wandering ways. I too am getting my balance back. I told myself that there are no rules anymore, that I just have to keep going until we find out why this is happening to us. Maybe I read too many science fiction books when I was a kid. But this overlapping of time and space seems like we're living in parallel universes. Do you think we are separated for life? Each unable to exist in the other's presence? All my love, Griffin.
Griffin, I think that the concept of the parallel universes is too grand. This, I sense, is more personal, a test of our tenacity. If we solve our problem, we gain the reward of each other. Since I returned, the island seems subtly different. I can't explain it, but something is bothering me. I'm having a hard time starting work on the new stamp designs. Probably my eyes lost their innocence in the 6 months I was in London. Yet, I could swear the air is murky. My family remains the same, though. They are so pleased to have me home. They wanted to know absolutely everything I'd seen and done. I love them, as I do you. Sabine.
Sabine, you will see from the address that I'm no longer in Hampstead. Last week, a deputation of do-gooders and busybodies arrived on my doorstep. The movement had been orchestrated by my neighbor, the one who told me you hadn't been in the house. She and her cronies were worried about me. My state of mental health, to be precise. It seems that my behavior had been peculiar, and that leaving postcards on my ceiling and asking about invisible guests was as unfortunate a symptom as having hairs growing out of the palm of my hand. To be fair, my guardians did seem genuinely concerned. What was I to say to them? If I'd been daft enough to tell them about us, they'd have called up the loony bin and had me put in a straitjacket. So I placated them as best I could. I told them I was fine, perhaps a little tired from my long trip, and that yes, I would love to have a hot bowl of soup brought round from time to time. When they filed slowly away, I made up my mind to take off again. The thought of being peered at over the fence and from behind curtains did not appeal. I've had for years a standing offer from Verica's best friend, Maud, to go and stay with her in Dartington, just outside Totnes. The unhappiness I felt around Verica's death always kept me from accepting her hospitality, but I needed to make peace with the place. So here I am. Maud has the same open kindness that Verica exuded, although she's a good deal older. She's made me very welcome, told me I can stay as long as I like, and that I can make as much mess as I wish if I confine it to my room, which used to be her painting studio, before arthritis forced her to lay down her brushes. I walked over to Verica's old house today. The new owners had painted it pink and stuffed the garden full of roses. Verica would have laughed herself silly to have seen it. Remembering her laughter made me laugh. She and I laughed together, and once I started, I couldn't stop. I laughed till the tears ran down my face. And then I was crying my heart out, there, in the road in front of this ridiculous house. When I finished, it was okay. I'd forgiven her for leaving me, and we were friends again. I can't express what a relief that was. Often, when I want to work but have nothing specific in mind, I'll start with a familiar object, begin to draw it, and see what emerges. I just drew a banana that became a boat. Maybe you saw. It strikes me that it would be a good diversion to start making a children's story. I don't know the first thing about children, so my story is going to be the one I wanted to see and hear as a child, but never did. I doubt that I'll finish it, but for the time being, while most of my thoughts are directed towards you, it will be good therapy. And I wouldn't worry about murky eyes. London does that to you. The soot will probably wash out eventually. Hark at me giving you advice. You speak of a test. Do you believe it is a test set by someone else? Or is it of our own making? I've purposely steered away from theorizing about our situation, but isn't there someone old and wise on the island who might help us? This part of the world is short on reliable sages. Still hanging on for all I'm worth. Love, Griffin.
Griffin, I am so pleased you have gone to the country and made your peace with Verica. I felt the resolution was coming, and I'm glad for you. I'm back at work again. The printers made an error on the last Arba 8 cents issue, and the whole lot had to be recalled. It was very odd. They perforated through the heart of the stamp's image. They say they don't know how it happened. There was another hiccup in Paradise. My father broke his ankle playing gumball with the grandchildren. He's a hopeless patient. Mother and I take turns keeping him in his chair. Tell me the banana boat story. Sabine.
Sabine, since you asked, Puck, the well-known wizard and changer of things, including himself, has had his wand stolen by the dreaded lugs. Puck sets off in pursuit with his sidekick, Finn. However, without his wand, his spells only half work, and he and Finn end up as a semi-banana boat, heading downstream to recapture the wand. I haven't decided what happens next. To tell the truth, I don't know about the story, but I quite like the pictures. This keeps me busy and reasonably sane during the day. At night, however, I'm too restless to sleep. I prowl about the garden like a lion in a cage. I miss you. Griffin.
Mr. Griffin Moss, please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Victor Frolati, and I have recently arrived on the Sycamons, where I met a dear young woman called Sabine Stroheim. She tells me that you and she are very close. That is charming, and to me, professionally interesting. Would you mind giving me a few details? Nothing personal, I assure you. Just a little background information about the form of your communication. Dear Sabine has been so helpful. I felt sure you wouldn't mind my humble request. Yours, Victor Frolati. As a postcard aficionado, you will appreciate this old card from my collection. Unlike you and Sabine, I'm no artist, but I enter into the spirit of your liaison.
Sabine, who's Victor Frelati? I got this sycophantic card from someone of that name saying he knows you and he knows about us. He wants me to tell him about our relationship. To put it mildly, that is a very disturbing request from a stranger. Exactly what does he want to know about you and me? You didn't give him my address, surely. He calls you Dear Sabine. Patronizing fart. It's weird, getting a card from the islands from someone other than you. I don't like it. Love, Griffin.
No, I did not give Victor Frelati your address. He probably saw my card at the post office while he was waiting to go out. We're not high on security out here. Who is he? I am not exactly sure. It's hard to extract from him his profession and why he's here. When I arrived back from England, he was staying at my parents' house. He had turned up some 2 weeks previously, and having been introduced to my father as a fellow European intellectual, hit it off with him and ended up in the guest room. On my first night home, the family held a small party for me. I was tired and desperately disappointed from not seeing you, but I didn't want to hurt my parents' feelings, so I put on a clean dress and acted out a happy homecoming. The family was bombarding me with all kinds of questions about my trip, and I was trying to avoid making any reference to you, but I guess the occasional little thing must have come out. Anyway, halfway through the evening, Victor Frelati backed me into a corner and started asking me about London and what I had done there. He was ever so charming in a slippery way. He kept putting his hand on my arm. After a while, his questions became more explicit, and it was at that point I realized he must have been talking to my parents, because he seemed to know a lot about me, and some about you. You must know, Griffin, I would never talk about you to a stranger. My parents know a little of what happened, of course, but apart from them, I keep you jealously to myself. So when he started to ask about you and your house, I used a standard dodge and went to relieve myself. For the rest of the evening, I carefully avoided him, and whenever he smiled at me, I gave off a hacking cough. I asked my father about Frelati the following morning, and he said he's some kind of medical journalist, although he wasn't sure exactly what kind. Since that initial encounter, I've seen him on a number of occasions. This is a small community, and each time we meet, he's been nauseatingly attentive and consistent in his inquiries about you and me. 3 days ago, my father brought him to my house to see my paintings. Frelati has become Gus's chauffeur, pushing him around in a rickety old cane wheelchair that one of my uncles unearthed from his garden shed. Frelati's main query, restated in a variety of guises, was how much had my work been influenced by my friend in London. I kept looking at my father to see if he was noticing the persistence of Rolati's line of questioning, but his mind was elsewhere. Academically bright as he is, Gust never has been able to smell a shadow. I suggest you ignore Rolati's card and don't worry, I'll deal with him. Whether he's a journalist or not, I have no intention of giving him a story. Speaking of stories, I like your wand tale just as an outline on the card. Maybe Griffin Cards could do original children's story postcards. I'm pushing hard to finish the catalogue before the year is out. I went over to Tip to do some drawing. It's ages since I was there last. I camped overnight on the peninsula, me and a million insects. Good thing I was studying them, or they would have driven me insane. Sometimes I think about building a house out there, but then I remember it would take longer to get word from you. That I could not bear. Love, Sabine.
Mr. Griffin Moss, as you didn't reply to my first card, I must assume that you are reticent to assist me in my investigations. It is critical that you do so. Miss Straham's parents confirmed my suspicions that you and she have a fully formed, one-way visual telepathy. Do you realize how rare that is? As you may know, I am a scientific journalist, frequently published. In my opinion, it is your moral and social obligation to allow the scientific community access to your experiences. Miss Straham has become stubborn and will not show me your correspondence. I will undoubtedly persuade her in the end, but perhaps you could reason with her. I feel certain you will comply with my request that you send me her cards and letters to you. Yours, Victor Frolati.
Sabine, in the post that followed your reassuring letter came another unreassuring card from Frelati. Unlike the first obsequious missive, this one had an undertone of threat. He wants our correspondence. What a fucking nerve. Who does he think he is? The science police? He may call himself a scientific journalist, but I think he's a freak hunter. You and I, my love, are the freaks. Do I still ignore him? Or would you prefer me to send him a letter telling him to go to hell? All my love, Griffin. Liked your spinning top so much, thought I'd do one of my own.
Griffin, do not write to him. It will only provoke him further. He now says he is a psychic analyst and that he wants to write a paper on us. I think he's a despoiler for one of those tabloid newspapers. I cannot get him to leave me alone. He comes to my house almost daily. I pretend to be out, and he waits for me on the porch. Everywhere I turn, he is there, waiting for me. Something is happening to my vision. When I see you drawing now, it is all out of focus. I must take action, but what do I do? Being apart from you is unbearable. Love, Sabine.
Sabine, I can't stand the thought of Frelati pestering you. I'm trying to imagine what the creep looks like. I picture a tall, skinny man with intense, piggy eyes and flattened, oily blue-black hair. What can I do to help you? Should I try again to reach the islands? I will give it a go if you say you want me. Even worse than Frelati, though I think he's got something to do with it, is your waning vision. Because the same thing is happening to me. When I first got back to London, I started seeing the things you drew. At first, dimly, and then quite distinctly. I didn't want to tell you. I wanted to surprise you by making a copy of one of your drawings and sending it to you. But now, the images have faded to milky blurs. Do you think Frelati is capable of obstructing our vision? If everything were well with you, my life here would be very pleasant. I divide my days up fairly equally between reading in the library up at Dartington Hall and painting in Maud's old studio. Dartington Hall Library is the most comfortable room I've ever been in. There are shelves packed with uncommon art books, soft, pillowy sofas, and windows overlooking the gardens. If we ever find a way of getting you here, I will take you into the garden and show you the dark trees they call the 12 Apostles, and tell you about the one night a year when you can see the 13th. I'm trying to improve my typing. Notice I now leave a space after a comma. I'm very proud of myself. I had a long conversation with Maud the other night. It started with her asking to see some of my work. I always carry a full set of my Griffin cards in my bag, so I got them out and handed them to her. She laid them out like tarot cards, studied them for a long time, and then proceeded to tell me about myself. Not my biography or my practical everyday life, but my symbolic life. The play of images that my unconscious revels in while I labor on the surface. At the end of it, I asked how she knew so much about symbols and the unconscious and all that. She gave me a sort of lopsided grin and said, 10 years as a Jungian analyst gives one a little inside information. Once again, I'd underestimated someone who could tell me exactly what I needed to know. Maud started her reading by looking at the blind leading the blind, the picture of the 4 naked baby kingfishers, and unthinking drinking the goldfish escaping from the glass. She said they were emblematic of a number of minor themes, such as escape and the rite of passage. However, the major theme, the heart of the matter, is my search for the philosopher's stone, the pursuit of harmony and balance. She noted my use of a series of creatures that show a transition from single to dual harmonic status. Then she picked up on the references to the Sphinx and pointed out that the griffin was interchangeable with the Sphinx in early Egyptian mythology. She spoke for a long time. I'd lose her altogether at some points, and then suddenly she'd say something so right that my mouth would drop open. She finished by telling me that I was in search of my equal opposite. I almost blurted out that I'd found her, but then Fralati came to mind, and I didn't want to risk trusting anyone, not even this wise and gentle woman. Is it true? Do you think you are my perfect opposite? All I know is that when I conjure you up in my bed at night, the blood races through my body at the speed of light. I've been frightened to tell you about the way you infatuate me sexually in case you rejected me. But now that I see you too are vulnerable, I feel I can tell you. I want to see you respond to my caress. I want to feel your skin on mine, to smell your sweat and taste the salt on your neck, to forget everything except your presence. I'd never experienced real desire till you arrived, for which I thank and damn you alternately. We must find a way to be together or I will combust. I doubt that I will ever be able to express to you how much I love you. Griffin.
Do not come. It is too dangerous. You almost died once trying to cross the water, and the chasm between us is far more treacherous now. I do not wish to alarm you, but I am in great distress. Victor Fralati has become like an enemy in a nightmare. His malevolence is clear to me, and nobody else notices. He was cornering me continually, at the market, in my parents' house, in front of my own door, standing far too close to me, and saying that I must let him see the cards and letters. He has become more and more oppressive. I've never been subjected to that kind of physical intimidation before. Island men do not behave like that, and I found it I didn't know how to respond. 2 days ago, he was waiting for me at my door as I came back from the river. The sight of him made me feel ill, and I told him to leave me alone to get away from my house. He gripped my arm and whispered, "I'll get what I want. I must see your London notebook, and I'll make you give it to me in the end." This caught me off guard, because I didn't think anyone knew I kept a record while I was away. For a minute I was frightened, and then I broke free of his hold, pushed him away from me, and called him a tyrant and a pseudo-intellectual bore and a number of other names. I wish I hadn't. I had assumed he was a hollow bully. But yesterday afternoon, Victor was pushing my father up the road to the square when the wheelchair, supposedly, hit a pothole, and father was thrown out. His ankle, which was healing, was cracked again. I feel certain that this was Victor's warning to me. He knows that I cannot put my parents in danger. I went to my mother and told her everything. She promised to do what she could to detach my father from his dependence on Victor. She also suggested that I stick by her for the next few days. So this morning, for the first time since I was little, I went out with my mother on her rounds. She has 2 young trainee midwives working with her now, and the 4 of us made our post and prenatal tours. It was comfortable being around pregnant women and babies. I forgot about Frolati for a while. At one point, the trainees were tending a woman soon to give birth, and Tahi asked if I could see the difference between her 2 protégés. I replied that from what I saw, one was impatient to drag the child from its mother, and the other was indecisive and in danger of allowing the mother to become exhausted. "Good," said Tahi. "And how are you with your griffin?" Her astute words made me feel bitterly lonely. I have no power to be with you at all anymore. Have I missed my chance? My visions of your artwork have gone completely. I have lost that which was most precious to me. No, that's not true. You mean more to me. But I've gained so much from watching your drawings and paintings come alive that now I feel like the cord has been cut. Your cards and letters are all I have. How could I reject your desire for me? You are my only bed partner. Why should I not be yours? Because I no longer see you, I need all the more to be able to imagine us together. But I am more and more afraid, Griffin. For the first time, I begin to think that we may never come together. Love, Sabine.
Sabine, we have to do something. Anything. I cannot stand by and watch the door between us close. We need to find a way to come together or be lost to one another forever. I'm not catastrophizing. I know this to be true. If I can't reach your world and you can't be in mine while I'm here, maybe there's another place. Halfway. think of giving in to Frelati. Hold on. I love you totally.
Griffin, yes, we've got it. It is so straightforward I could cry. We need to meet on middle ground. I will leave Frelati in my wind wake. The islands will be safer once I'm gone. Last March in Alexandria, you found a gate that opened onto a different world. Perhaps Alexandria is the place where we could meet. Perhaps the gate would let us both pass through. Will you meet me there? Will you leave everything behind so that we can be together? Do not hesitate, my love. I am filled with so much hope. Sabine.
Sabine, what you suggest is crazy, simplistic, and impossible. But of course, I will meet you. There is no reason without you. I will be at the Pharos in Alexandria on the 21st. I trust you, and I know we shall be together. Griffin, bring your angel wings.
Dear Matthew, it's good to get in touch with you at last. We're very impressed with your general diagnostic abilities. However, we're not convinced you should be considering prescribing penicillin for the Atubi's youngest son. Write soon. Sabine M. Strohem.
The darkness drops again. But now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by her rocking cradle. And what rough beast, its hour come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born.